Good evening, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Jennifer, and I'm one of the three co-founders of Build Manager. We've got the other two founders today, that's Ben and Matt. They're going to be here helping along with the presentation. We've got lots of new faces, so before we crack on, I'm just going to do a really quick introduction of who Build Manager is and what we do. So we are a self-build membership platform, empowering individuals to build their dream home in the UK. And we do this in three main ways. So first of all, we've got an in-depth online course where you can guide yourself through the self-build process, right from looking at land and trying to work out how much it's going to cost to build, all the way through to the completed self-build. And you can either do that on your own or you can do it with a self-build coach. Secondly, we've got a range of membership discounts across plenty of different materials and services relevant to self-building, such as we're able to give you access to trade prices at Howdens. We can give you access to a Trade Pro account at Wix, which gives you 10% off everything. They've actually got a massive sale going on right now, so I definitely recommend joining if you haven't already. 20% off paints at Brewers, a discounted VAT reclaim service, which I know I definitely would have used if I'd had the option. And there's many more deals, and we're adding new partners all the time. And the third way that we offer value to our members is we hold masterclasses such as this one. We bring in a range of hosts across all different areas. So we've got Dan here this evening, who's a self-build architect. We've also had talks on source heat pumps, for example, different building materials. And we've got another masterclass coming up in December covering the new building regs and how that's going to be applicable to self-builders. So for anyone that would like to look at being a member today, please have a look in the chat and we'll share the link to join. And yeah, you can have a look at the different membership options. So without any more rambling from me, I'm going to hand you over to Dan, who's a fellow passionate self-builder. He's a qualified architect and he's going to be sharing his journey to building a house to Passivhaus principles with us this evening. So yeah, thank you, Dan.
Good evening, everyone. So, little title slide there. There's some QR codes on there which will take you to more information about the project and about some of the suppliers that we've used as we've gone along. A bit about me. So I'm an architect working in sort of Southwest and being based around Plymouth and Devon for the last 15 years. I renovated a house with my wife. We bought in 2011, did a lot of renovation work, did it basically all ourselves. Got electricians and skilled people in for the key bits, but did all the kind of hard work ourselves, carpentry and things like that. And basically decided that after we said it would take a year, it took us 6 years in the end. So after that experience, that kind of informed what we wanted to do next. We didn't want to buy another house somewhere and do the same thing again. So it sort of spurred the initial kind of thoughts about doing our own self-build. I still have a long-standing interest in low energy design and renewable technologies. So I've always been interested in things like solar panels, and then heat pumps came along, low energy lighting, that sort of thing. And then I sort of stumbled across Passivhaus after have been to a few lectures, went to a few sort of open days for houses that were being built or just be finished. I really liked the idea. So it's sort of all kind of brought together with our sort of thoughts about what we wanted to do and to do a self-build. So why a self-build? I sort of touched on that a bit now. The main thing really was we wanted to live in a village called Wembury in South Devon. It was basically unaffordable, and during COVID as well, it was very unaffordable for us to buy a place and then do the extensive amount of work that we'd probably have to do to it. The self-build route, even though it's incredibly busy and all-consuming and stressful, it's worth it in that I think you can get much more for your money and exactly what you want in terms of design compared to if you just bought somewhere and had to sort of hack it apart. The key principle I was saying to one of the hosts beforehand for us was energy security. So for the immediate future, and we started this process before the energy crisis, but for the long term is, we're going to be there hopefully the next sort of 40 odd years or so until we pop our clogs. We want to make sure that we're basically secure and not actually spending anything, or as minimal as possible on energy bills. So yeah, that was it really. And then the other reason to build my own place is sort of ego driven, I guess. As an architect, wanted to kind of have my own home, but also use it as an opportunity to help educate others on the Passivhaus standard on low energy design, and how sort of principles can be integrated, whether as a whole, as if you're doing your own project, or a little bit as you go along. So what are we building? We're building a very small, it's a compact and modest 3-bed house in Wembury. It's built to the Passivhaus Plus standard, or if it will be certified as such in a year or so. We've split it into 2 phases, which I'll talk about in a minute, and why we had to do that. The first phase, basically sort of entrance hall, open plan living space, separate utility room, plant room, and then upstairs 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a master ensuite. The second phase will be a garage and a kind of study, home office type thing. So I'll put a timeline in here. So it's quite interesting putting this together and thinking back to how long it's taken us to do this process. But basically, it all started off by back in the summer of 2019. We decided to go for a walk along the coast path, and then ended up from Plymouth, ended up in Wembury, and sort of got to our endpoint, had to sit down, and then sort of found this scrappy bit of land, which we weren't sure, what it was. After a long walk home, because the buses weren't running that day, we did a land registry search, and then I did a planning history search. All looked pretty interesting. Wrote to the owners for the land registry search, and then basically they were interested in selling it to us. So sort of commenced negotiations with them. Based on my experience of similar projects in the past, I got what was called an option agreement together. So it's a legal agreement basically with the owners. So basically it said if we got planning, they would sell it to us for a fixed price. Because obviously land with planning is quite expensive. So we started our sort of planning journey, did a pre-application inquiry that was positive, developed the design a bit more, worked with Mayflower mortgages, which are incredibly useful and worth their fee. And yeah, Mayflower really, really good at sort of explaining restrictions that I wasn't really aware of as an architect. Usually I sort of deal with clients and don't really get involved in the kind of money side of things in terms of where their money is coming from and how they're spending it and restrictions as such. With the self-build mortgage route, you have restrictions such as warranties, and then warranty providers have restrictions such as, in this case, timber cladding. So originally we wanted to clad the whole building in timber, which you can do, but if you do that, it massively restricts the lenders out there and also the rates available and so on and so on. So anyway, yeah, we got planning submitted in June 21, got approval just before Christmas in 2021. During that time, we were also speaking to multiple builders, found a really good builder locally who actually lives down the road just from the site, coincidentally, who's done also a couple of passive houses before. After we got planning, we purchased the land, did our detailed costing information, got our costs back, and then it was double the budget. So that was kind of head in hands moment, and that's when we sort of we took a step back and we decided to this is something we definitely wanted to do. So we revised the design, made it a bit smaller, so about 20% smaller, and made it feasible. So the original design was just an L shape, sort of 150 square meter house, and we basically split it into 2 blocks so that we could build, as I said earlier on, the house first, the main block first, and then the garage second. So we submitted a new application for that in April of this year, got planning for it in July. During that time, we started some enabling works on site under the previous planning permission. And yeah, started in June-ish, July-ish this year. And hopefully by May, it will be finished. I was saying to the guys beforehand, my builders said it might be earlier, so we'll see. So constraints on our design. As I mentioned just now, self-build mortgage and our affordability. So obviously everyone's circumstances are different. For us, sort of a youngish couple, based on our sort of income and outgoings and stuff, and working with Mayflower, we kind of worked out what our maximum budget was. And then working with builders as the design second time around developed, and using sort of meter squared rates, we managed to kind of attune the design to suit that. And I said, so the other thing that was quite a big impact on us was planning policy. We're in an area of outstanding natural beauty. We've got the local authorities climate emergency, which talks about sort of sustainability, energy use, renewables, and materials as well. And for us, one of the big things we want to do, partly for our daughter as well, for the future, is biodiversity net gain. So there's a minimum 10% now under policy for all projects, but we upped it to 48% gain, just because it's something we're really passionate about. So I'll move briefly on to Passivhaus. I'm not going to go through everything, but basically Passivhaus it can be applied to new build projects or to renovation projects through something called InnoFit. The key principle of Passivhaus design is low energy, achieved through insulation levels and really efficient windows. Having an airtight construction, so you're losing energy, or you're not losing heat, as it were. Having a ventilation system which brings fresh air in, and as your stale air goes out, it recovers the heat from that, so you're minimizing your heat loss again. And the design also is not just about keeping all the heat in, it's also about preventing it from overheating. So by careful modeling of the glazing around the building, which is becoming more relevant, obviously, as you get hotter summers, making sure we don't get too hot inside the house. So I think the key point really is it's a sort of between an 80 and 90% reduction compared to a standard building regulations built house in terms of energy use. So that's the kind of key principles of the design. The benefits so principles is sort of more architect hat on, benefits is more of a self-builder hat on. You know, why would I do this? And I think the key is really low cost to run financially, and also a healthier and more comfortable living environment. So there's a filter there. I mean, it's an airtight construction, but you can still open windows. It doesn't mean you have to live in a hermetically sealed box or anything. But yeah, you filter your air. So if you're in the countryside, like I am, it'll filter the pollen out of the air, which is nice because I suffer from hay fever in the summer. Equally, if you're in the city, you can filter out particulates. It also controls your moisture levels inside. And actually, for the Passivhaus Plus and Premium level projects, you have excess power generation, which you can then use for other means. Interestingly, as an aside, Passivhaus used on other projects or other building types such as schools shows sort of increased sort of focus. So another quick slide on Passivhaus. So it explains the 3 levels there. So classic, no energy generation. Plus is what we're going for. So we'll generate sort of 1.4-ish times more energy than we'll need to use. And then Premium, there was one on Grand Designs a couple of weeks ago, but this guy was just building this huge house with a yoga mezzanine, which, yeah, was crazy. But yeah, Premium generates way more energy. So hopefully, yeah, with Passivhaus Plus, if we get to that level, we'll be able to have enough energy left for an electric car and not worry about fuel for that. A bit of detail about our construction systems and materials. So originally, when we started the journey 2019, I've always wanted to build a timber frame house. Having done all of the work in our renovation and doing all the carpentry and stuff, I really got a feel for that, and doing it all myself, I really wanted to do that. With the process, with the way the world went, with COVID, timber increases, prices and that sort of stuff, and with the contractor that we'd used, we decided to actually look at a concrete block, monolithic type construction. We also looked at hollow clay block systems. So there's a couple of companies, Duro and Porafirm, with EWI, which is external wall insulation. And it's something I was really wanted to use, but it wasn't possible to get a warranty on it at the time, which is a bit of a shame. But it's something to definitely look at in the future. So we settled on a product called ICF, which is insulated concrete formwork. Made by a company up in North Devon, or they make it in Norfolk, but they machine it in North Devon. And it's just it's quite a modular system made in the UK, not imported from Canada or anything like that. The benefits are speed. I'll show you a slide later on, but we've gone from basically a flat site to up to roof level in 8 weeks. So it's incredibly fast. It's got high thermal mass, which is really good for Passivhaus in terms of regulating your internal temperature levels of the building. Yeah, and it's also really simple to apply your systems to it. So internal plaster, plasterboard, cladding externally, render, whatever you want really. And then materials and suppliers. So we've specifically as we've been working through the project, one of the things we wanted to do was use UK-based suppliers where we could, tradesmen, craftsmen. So the main obviously superstructure is the ICF, which comes from North Devon, so using a sort of Southwest based company. And then the timber cladding is hopefully coming from Vaston Timber, which is based near Royal Wood and Bassett, and they use timber from UK woodlands. Internal timber panelling is hopefully coming from South Moulton in Devon. And yeah, some stone finish as well. So I'm waffling on. The M&E systems. So there are, I mean, this is actually a minefield for me because there's so many systems out there and there's so many combination systems, and to be honest, it got a bit overwhelming. We really wanted to go for a ground source heat pump, and it was looking quite good. I mean, with Passivhaus, because your energy use is so low, all the associated equipment that goes with that doesn't need to be as massive. So your air source heat pump, your ground source heat pump doesn't need to have a massive rating to it. So ground source was looking really good, favourable. We would have done a borehole, and we'd only need one that was 40 meters long because of the load rather than 180 meters. And you pay per meter. But the issue was when it came to MCS accreditation and getting the grant, basically the MCS, the way they calculate it wasn't the same as Passivhaus calculates it. So it ended up being way more expensive. So in the end, we decided to go for an air source heat pump for our hot water. We won't really need heating in the house, so it's not really a concern. So we've got a large 5 kilowatt array on the roof of solar panels, charging a battery to use also at night, and when we've got sort of troughs in the winter. We can also use it to charge off the grid when there's off-peak electricity if we need to. The MVHR, the mechanical ventilation system, which I explained about earlier on. Good hot water cylinder with a PV diverter, so if we have excess generation, we can use that. And then one of the little things I came across was something called wastewater heat recovery. So it's effectively a pipe where your water from when you have a shower or your water goes down, your sort of warm water, wastewater, and it puts cold water into the pipe and transfers the heat out of the water going out down the drain into the incoming water, which makes the so now I guess lukewarm water goes back into your cylinder and into your cold water feed in your shower. So it reduces how much energy needs to go back into your hot water cylinder. It's very simple system, no power. It doesn't need an electricity connection or anything like that. It's all inert, and it's only a few £100, so it's actually quite a good saving. And then the last one there was taps and shower fittings. So again, just choosing, it's what we're doing literally at the moment, is choosing our sanitary ware to choose fittings that are aerating and use as little water and also little energy to heat that water as possible. The other consideration for us was what we could get back. So we're building this house. We want to be able to get something back from it, as well as having a really nice living environment. We want to hopefully benefit from the export tariff, not the amazing feed-in tariff that some people benefit from, and the boiler upgrade scheme, which is the Prime Minister, was it a few weeks ago, announced the upgrade to £7,500 now you can get for an air source heat pump or ground source heat pump. There are systems out there, and we looked again when we started the process of M&E. We looked at systems which combine basically all of this into one big box. But for us, as I looked at those systems a bit more, I kind of felt that it would be better to have more individual components, just from a sort of maintenance point of view. If something failed, I could replace it, and also if I felt like if something really amazing technology came out, I could replace it and take advantage of that as well. So reflection, you can see little pictures on the bottom there of where we were at the end of September and where we are as of Saturday. So what would I do differently from our whole process? I think working with Mayflower was key from the very start of the whole process. I think I had my architect hat on and I started designing it, and I think the first thing I should have done is just spoken to them, and got the budget in place, and because it just really informed everything. I mean, we had the slight hiccup with COVID and obviously something like Ukraine sort of influencing prices, and that kind of meant we had to do the redesign. But yeah, generally get your budget sorted out even before you found a site potentially. Just get the budget, know roughly what you want to build. You can look on Rightmove at houses you like the look of, new builds, existing properties, get an idea of the sort of space you want, square meterage, and then use that to kind of work out your kind of budget, I guess. And I think Jennifer mentioned to me there's a tool on the Build Manager website, a budget tool, I think. Which can help with that process. Reflection as well. So time, as I said earlier on, the process is all consuming. It literally takes over your entire life. And we should have learned from when we did our own renovation, 6 years of evenings and weekends. We should have learned about that, but yeah, it's all for the greater good, I think, for our long term forever thing, really. And also, yeah, not getting carried away with the design, which is very hard as a designer. My last point, which is, it's kind of, if I had more capital to start with, it would have helped with getting around some of the warranty requirements and sort of site setup and things like that. But it's just our circumstance, I guess. It's what the position that we were in. So yeah, I'll probably skip through that quite quickly, actually. But the last slide here is what I can offer. I'm not going to read all of this. The bit at the bottom is about the practice that I work at. I'm obviously an architect and a sort of self-builder, so I've got experience of the process and experience probably more so of having been through it now, learning about the kind of restrictions of mortgages and warranties, which is quite tricky to navigate. I've looked at multiple construction systems, not just sort of standard timber frames or concrete block and things I've done in my professional life, as it were, but all the other sort of forms of construction and even I'd say the IACF, which we settled on. And yeah, I've got extensive experience of working with private clients. That's been my sort of career focus for the last 15 years, really. The last one is thank you, and it's my sort of brief run through of our project. I'm sure everyone's got questions. We're also going to have an open day at the end of January where people are welcome to pop along and have a look at the process, look at the construction systems, and have a chat to myself and the builder. And then we'll probably have another one at the end when we're finished, if and when we finish. So yeah, and then on to the Q&A.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Dan. You jam-packed that presentation.
I did, sorry. Yeah.
It was really good. Thank you for doing that. Definitely recommend for anyone wanting to follow Dan's journey to go onto Instagram. It's really interesting, the videos he puts on. And also, once you release the Eventbrite link for your open day, Dan, I'll make sure I share that for everyone that's been in this presentation, in case they wish to come along. Okay, so I'm going to run through the questions. If anyone's got a question as well and they'd like to just chat to Dan and unmute yourself, please put your hand up, as in the virtual hands, only because I might not be able to see all of you, and I'll try and go through everyone in order. So the first question, we're going to start off with a really easy question, Dan, which is, Phil asks, is it 109 metres square total or just on the ground floor?
Total.
Okay, there we go. Right, off to the
yeah. No, it's not a massive house. I mean, we've always sort of I mean, our terrace house was, I think, 80 square meters. We're jammed into a little rental up the road at the moment, which is 50 square meters, which is fun. But yeah, we've never been like, oh, we want a massive 500 square meter mansion or anything like that. We've always been about living sort of by our own means, I guess. Living in a sort of compact-ish home, but the way we've designed it, it's adaptable, so the spaces are adaptable. It looks quite simple on plan, but we can kind of move things around as we get older.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Phil had another couple of questions about the construction method. He was asking block including brick, and has it got external wall insulation? But I think you tackled both of those as you went through the presentation.
So it's ICF, insulated concrete formwork. So it's effectively 2 layers of extruded polystyrene, which is the denser version of the white polystyrene packaging you get. So that's kind of balls and stuff. But what we've got is called extruded polystyrene, XPS. You can get it in multiple thicknesses from the company that we used, called R-Wall. We went for 100 mil inside and 150 mil outside. And they are then jointed by these effective rails, they call them R-rails, which are made from recycled UPVC windows. And you effectively just put the polystyrene down, put the rail in between, slot it into these little grooves, put the next block on, build up to, I think, like to the first floor level, and then you pour it full of concrete. The concrete we use as well was low carbon concrete, so it uses a byproduct of the iron industry instead of cement. Which is stronger apparently, and the contractor loved it because he said it had the consistency of yogurt, so it kind of poured into the formwork very well and settled, and they didn't need to vibrate it or perforate what they do very much. So
Oh, that leads well actually onto the next question. So Jamie asked, was embodied carbon part of this structural decision-making process? If so, were there any calcs done around the use of concrete?
I haven't done any calculations, no. I say originally, I wanted to do timber frame construction, but it kind of went from architect hat on to self-builder hat on. And if I'd kept my architect hat on, I probably wouldn't have done it, because it would have been like, well, I'm going to the dark side of plastic and concrete. But yeah, the reason we did this project, the reason we did a self-build is, outlined on the phone, the first or second slide, is that we wanted to build a forever home for ourselves. And so what we've done is, at the time with the construction systems, we've chosen a system which we could afford, which we could build. And we've done it in a way where we've tried to do it as with as low carbon materials as possible. So there are other ICF systems out there, but the one we went with uses recycled products in its manufacture, captures CO2. So when they extrude the polystyrene, they actually blow CO2 into it from I think it was like a sugar beet factory or something. So actually, and the advantage of that as well is, with the CO2 in it, if you try and set fire to it, it puts itself out, which I haven't tried. So yeah, it's in answer to your question, I haven't done embodied carbon calculations. I will muse about it when I get some time, but not at the moment.
Not right now.
Not right now. No, I need to
Something for
sort
the
out
future.
101. Yeah, I've got 101 other things on my list to do first.
So Phil's next question is, do you have any challenges with heat and water, with hardness of water?
I don't think so. No, I think the area we're in, the water's okay. I mean, we've been living in a rental property up the road for 12 months, and I think the water's fine. I don't know where it's hard or soft, but it's I think it's fine. But
Okay.
yeah, I imagine if that was a problem, you could fit a filter or something onto the incoming water main. Water softener, I think it's called.
Yeah. So the next question is, do you need to decide you're aiming for a passive house before planning and building regs are done?
Yes, yeah, 100%. It needs to be basically, it has to be a consideration from the outset for the whole project. It's not something you can bolt on. As you could bolt on solar panels onto the roof. It needs to be considered from day one, really. Working with your architect or architect who might be a certified designer, or with an architect or a designer and a certified Passivhaus consultant. But yeah, it's because it comes down to really the construction system can follow, because Passivhaus isn't prescriptive as to what construction system you use, but what it does prescribe is the kind of orientation of the dwelling, the size of window openings. So basically, you want, in summary, you want big glaze openings facing south to use solar gain, shading over those in the summertime to stop them getting too hot, and then as smaller openings as possible on your kind of north-ish facing facades to minimize heat loss.
Brilliant, thank you, Dan. Next question is from Phil. Who maintains all these mechanical electrical kits? Plumbers or electricians, or a specialist for each of them?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, I guess it's no different to a gas boiler. It's now, air source heat pump will be serviced by an air source heat pump technician. There's actually quite a few around now. The more research we've done into it, there are certainly down this way. When I was looking for electrical contractors, I noticed on a couple of the websites they now offer heat pump servicing as a kind of standard service, as it were. So that's quite reassuring. So yeah, heat pumps, and then I mean the rest of the kit, a hot water cylinder. I mean, they've been around in houses for a long time, decades. I mean, it's just a hot water cylinder. Solar panels on the roof, electrician can service. Battery. I mean, it's all pretty simple technology, really.
Okay. And the next question is, given your knowledge now, what do you think the cheapest construction technology is to use? ICF, SIF, blocks?
Don't know. I think it just depends on your area. Depends on the area, depends on your contractor, depends on what you're doing at your site. Whether you're doing any retaining walls or anything like that. I mean, it's so open-ended. I mean, access as well. I mean, what's good about the product we're using? I mean, access for ours is really easy. So we could have done anything. But the contractor's got a couple of other projects on where he's using that product because you can get it down tricky paths, and because it's basically polystyrene, just lifting it down paths, and then you're filling it with concrete by a long crane jib. But yeah, in answer to the question, it's kind of a bit of an open answer, really. I think the best thing is to talk to whoever your designer is, talk to who your contractor is, get some initial costs. I mean, one of the first things we did was before we had a builder on board, is with one of the initial designs, I went out to a few timber frame manufacturers. So there's loads of companies around, and you send them your drawings and they come back to you with a quote. I then compared that to quotes from builders I got for blockwork construction. I say at the time, timber frame was basically double blockwork construction, which was crazy. But I think things have changed. You know, that was basically during COVID and sort of Ukraine starting as well. So sorry, that's probably not the answer you wanted.
No, it's good. So do research in your own area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Underline one for that. Okay, so Chris has got a few questions. So first of all, did you consider underfloor heating? I'll just read out the full question, full things. Yeah. So yeah, did you consider underfloor heating? Are you having triple glazing? And did you go for a solid base or block and beam?
Cool. Right. Okay. So underfloor heating, no. We don't need heating, so we've not got any heating in the property. I was saying that we might have a couple of tower radiators in the bathrooms just to have some nice wall towels. And then that also kind of links into the last question. So we've built with the ICF. We've got solid concrete construction. We've also built basically the polystyrene base has a 250 mil thick concrete slab on top of it, which we're then finishing with a very thin screed, which will look like polished concrete. So effectively that whole of that slab, which is solid, and the base of our building also forms our ground floor construction and our ground floor finish. And the sun will heat that during the day in the winter, and then it will kind of radiate heat in the evenings. So it's like we use as a sort of a thermal heat store. And then the second question, we have triple glazing, everywhere, and that's one of the kind of paramount things of paramount principles of Passivhaus is to have triple glazing to basically be as efficient as possible. Interestingly, actually, the thing I learned as I was sort of going through teaching myself the Passivhaus during lockdowns was obviously the larger the window, the better with triple glazing, because the most efficient part of the window is the glazing part. The frame is actually the least efficient. So the bigger the window have, the more glass you have, the better the window.
Well, that's interesting. You wouldn't think that, would you?
No.
And actually, following on from talking about the triple glazing, Joanne says, congrats on taking on this project. Your reasons are similar to ours. We're at the design phase at the moment, and may I ask, what windows have you chosen?
Yeah, so we've gone with a company called Norsken, Norrsken, based in Poole in Dorset. They're all the shows that are at the Swindon Centre as well. Is on the title there. But yeah, they were kind of good value. We could have used a slightly cheaper composite system. So I should have said they were composite windows, so they're aluminium on the outside and timber on the inside. Just because we're based, the project is almost like 500 meters from the sea, so we needed something that was hard wearing. So yeah, Norsken is pretty good. And one of the other reasons we went for them is that they provide opening windows and lift and slide doors all from themselves. The cheaper manufacturer that I mentioned, they only do the kind of opening casement windows, whereas the lift and slides they'd have to basically buy from someone else. And I just wanted everything in one package, so everything was similar. And just little things like making sure all the external opening doors, the glazed doors, solid doors, and the lift and slides are all keyed alike as well. So I don't end up having like a drawer with loads of keys in it. I just have one key that does the whole house.
Yeah, it makes it a lot simpler. I think near the beginning of your presentation, you've got a QR slide, haven't you, which went to the suppliers that you're using?
Yeah.
Was that still in the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, so well, what I'll do is I'll send out, if that's okay, this presentation to everyone that's on this evening.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone can go through it in more detail. Are there any more questions? So you can either put it in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask Dan anything. Joanne asked, did he use a QS?
No, I did not. No, I used a QS to he gave me a sense check of it, but he took so long that I'd started by the time he came back to me. But no, I got quite a good relationship with our builder, and because we've basically been working with him for sort of 2 years prior to starting, he's very good in that he gave me his full breakdown, his full pricing, rather than just a sort of summary sheet of the kind of headlines of superstructure, walls, floors, roof. It literally gave me everything down to, like, you know, every sheet of plasterboard and so on. And that transparency has been really good for working both ways. So it enables me to kind of use my experience and knowledge of past projects to kind of interrogate that a bit more, work with him to adjust things, and it's actually also really helpful to inform the design. I think if I work with a QS, I mean, this is obviously from my perspective, it might be different for you guys, but yeah, if working with a QS, you've got to have to, there's another level of complexity there.
Thanks, Dan. And Jamie says, great presentation and wonderful looking build project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, actually, we have a couple more questions. On the Passivhaus side of things, does it affect the internal finish? Can you use standard materials, or are they CFC free, etc.?
I don't think it's prescriptive as to any construction system or any finish. You can do what you want, really. Obviously, things like CF free and low VOCs and things like that are good for you. So yeah, why not? So I mean, one of the things we're doing is wanting to use sort of low mineral based paints rather than sort of acrylic based, oil based paints and things internally.
Brilliant, thank you. And Will has got a question. Go for it, Will. Unmute yourself.
Hello, Dan.
Hi.
We like the idea of your project. Very similar to what we're building. We're aiming to build Passivhaus. We're not going to go down the route of getting all the certification and whatnot, but we're building to Passivhaus principles. My two questions are really, when it comes to heating the building, I know Passivhaus is sold as this magical, unicorn that doesn't need heating. At the moment, our sort of view is belt and braces. So we're thinking of installing understore heating with an air source heat pump. But no one seems to be able to give me the confidence that says, no, don't install it, you will be okay. What are your views on that? Because of course that would say that a big chunk of
we deliberated about it a lot. Have you visited any Passivhauses, any completed ones?
Yes, we visited a few, and they do seem extremely warm. It was really in the summer, so it was a little bit difficult, but they weren't overly hot or anything. They just seemed a nice, comfortable. But the summer, we probably do need to visit some in the winter to. Yeah.
I think there's two things with underfloor heating. One is obviously providing heat to warm your space, and the second one is providing a nice, if you like to walk around barefoot, you're not walking on the cold surface. I think I would say just it's difficult, but you need to put your faith in the Passivhaus software and the designer. But you could always also have a backup. So with our place, we've got the air source heat pump, which is providing hot water. And like I said just now, we've got a couple of tower radiators which we can connect up as well and use. I did a house years ago, 2014. I did a house that it was just way before I learned about Passivhaus. And it was designed not to Passivhaus standards at all, but it was very well insulated. And we didn't put any underfloor heating in that. And the client heated it via a electric mat in the bathroom and an Arga, like electric Arga, and he had MVHR running, but that wasn't designed to Passivhaus principles at all, and it was absolutely fine. So I don't know really. I mean, I guess if you're unsure and you're concerned, then you could put it in, but like I say, it would probably save quite a lot of money by not putting it in. So,
and sorry, just one other question. We've gone to, when designing the house, we've gone to all this of making it super insulated.
Yeah.
And we have a view that is it's more sort of a south-facing view, which we deliberately put big windows in. We've just had our sort of passive house calculations, and they're saying now that we're in danger of overheating. We've adjusted the windows, made them as small as possible. And the feedback we get now is, well, you can put air conditioning in, but that seems to defeat the whole principle of trying to build a passive house.
Yeah.
You make it warm enough in the winter that you don't need heating, but if it is so insulated, I think our only option at the minute is to put additional shading.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you got any external shading?
We haven't. We did put it in the planning proposal, so I think that's our route of coming down.
Yeah. So actually, on our project, we've got planning for a big sort of flat roof terrace, effectively cover over our south-facing sliding doors, and I'm not going to build it straight away because I want to see if it gets too hot. Yeah. I want to test it out for a couple of seasons first, and then if it does overheat, then I'll build it out.
Right. Yeah. Maybe we'll do that. Go without the shading, see what happens, and then if we need it,
test it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's it. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Brilliant. Okay, and there is one more question. So Ray asked, as you've got solar, are you going for an eddy to use excess heat back to hot water? Yeah,
I was actually having a conversation with my electrician on Saturday about this. So I was, and this is going back into the minefield of talking to a different renewable specialist. So one of the kind of leading ones in the southwest has said to me, there's no point in putting an eddy in, because if I've got an air source heat pump, I might as well divert the power to the air source heat pump, which is generating your hot water at sort of 200% efficiency, and then put that back into the cylinder rather than using an eddy. Whereas when I speak to the electrician, who's obviously not a heat pump specialist, he's saying, no, use an eddy, because then it just diverts it straight into the cylinder. So and it bypasses the heat pump, because he's saying when it goes from the PV to the heat pump and back again, it has losses or something. But anyway, it's I don't know. I'm in two minds. Yeah, I've got it as it's on my list, but I could potentially save 500 quid and not put it in. So it's one of those things that I could retrofit at a later date. So, but then it will cost me VAT. So. Yeah, I don't know any answer to the question.
This is the hardest thing, isn't it? There's so many options and choices.
It's options, and it's just yeah, exactly. It's conflicting advice from and the M&E side of things has been the worst bit, the mechanical and electrical systems, because it's everyone says something different, and yeah, it's just so confusing. And that's from someone like myself. I don't consider myself a lay person, but it's very complex, the whole subject, and then things like the MCS accreditation, which you need for solar panel installation and for your heat pumps to get your boiler upgrade scheme grants, and all the additions and requirements of those to enable you to get the grants. It's all these little loopholes, all these things you have to jump through, and I don't know, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It'll be worth it all in the end.
Yeah, definitely.
We're just right in the midst of it now.
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. We've gone through all the questions. Yeah, thank you so much, Dan, for giving your time this evening and putting together that presentation.
No problem.
There was a lot of value in there, so yeah, thank you for that. And I'll send out to everyone the presentation slides tomorrow, so you'll have them in your inbox if you want to run through them. And this is also recorded, so in roughly a week's time, we'll put the recording up onto YouTube and in our members area on Build Manager, so you can rewatch this back. And you've got Dan's contact details there if you want to reach out to him and ask him any more questions or share, follow his Instagram account, which is brilliant. So yeah, once again, massive thank you, Dan, and thank you everyone else for joining us this evening as well on a Monday night.